Hey guys, it's Shae here from The Natural Lifestyles, and this is another interview series with Sebastian, my good friend. And today we're going to cover some really cool stuff about men's work, looking at a holistic frame, and really going deep and transforming yourself from the inside out. So I'm really looking forward to what Sol's got to offer us here today. So welcome aboard, Sol.
Hello, Shae. How are you, mate?
Fucking awesome, brother.
It's good to hear your voice again. It's good to be back.
Yeah.
In the land of Shae.
It's good to have you on board, man. Always a pleasure chatting with you.
Great.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, man. Like I want to know about your mission because I know that you've been doing this work for a really long time and it's a huge passion for you. So tell us about like where you're coming from with your mission. What's your purpose with what you're doing?
That's a good question. My purpose. Well, I guess you could say on a macro level, on a sort of a big level, my purpose is to help men transition from pretty outdated paradigms and modes of being to a way of living that is in line with who they really are as a human being.
Yep.
That's a pretty big statement, I know.
Yeah.
But it's not hard to see that men today are in flux. There's plenty of if you just go on the TED Talks, and there's a bunch of talks around how fucked up we are as men.
Yep, totally.
There's a talk by that guy, I forget his name, The Demise of Guys. If you Google that in TED, The Demise of Guys, and then there's The End of Men, and then there's like the great porn experiment. And there's always issues that are surfacing right now about men and how much they're struggling with their identity, their place in the world, their sense of potency, masculinity, their sense of purpose. I mean, it's become quite in vogue, really, for men to actually start talking about it, and for the world at large to start talking about, how men are lost. And my work really is addressing, giving men the tools in which they can start to dig deeper and find out what they're really about.
Yeah.
And not what they're about in terms of what society and culture and the media is saying it should be about, but what really is true from a deep, from a deep essential nature. What really is important at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. It's a very potent and important mission at this time, I think. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and I know you've got a long history of your own self-development and training that you've been doing for a long time. Do you want to let us know a little bit about, just your journey, your story, and how you've come to be the man you are today with the work that you're doing?
Cool. So, we can go right back to early days when I was, I guess, let's say I was pretty much on the street, living in Melbourne, and my life was pretty messy, and my sense of self-preservation was pretty low. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
And just before I was about to completely go off the deep end, I met a great guy. His name's John Radcliffe. Actually, he sort of pulled me out of the gutter, so to speak, and taught me Chinese medicine. I became his assistant for a couple of years, and I learned about the body. I learned about the adrenal glands. I learned about the kidneys. I learned about the heart, the liver. I learned about the emotional relationship with the physical health. I learned about sexuality. I learned many things through the lens of first Chinese medicine and then more of the mystical schools of Taoism, and I started learning a lot with Qigong and martial arts and yogic practice. So I got right into the Eastern arts, like really heavily.
Awesome.
And, I went to live with Mantak Chia in those early days in Thailand for a couple of years and studied the whole healing Tao system, which I eventually moved on from. And and then I went into, and I started getting more interested in Western modes of transpersonal psychology and certain mystery schools around, really understanding the nature of self and understanding the nature of our place in the world. Much more philosophical and I guess psychological.
Yep.
Aspects of our being.
Yep.
But being the slut I am, I always had a sort of a bent towards sexuality in women.
Yep.
I always had a being sort of the horny goat that I've always had a just more specific towards women's sexuality, hormonal health, male potency, and all that makes a guy just jump out of it and just want just have a real lust into life. I'm really interested in what gets a guy, what gets really motivated, what gets us turned on, and I'm really interested in the science and art of sexuality and how that shows up either out in the field or in the bedroom or just in your own private space. So I'm interested in that piece in particular.
Yes, absolutely.
I think it's a very underdeveloped and there's a lot of false consciousness in this area, and I guess I'm wanting to bring more clarity in that part of men's life.
Yeah, perfect. Well, because I think that's such an important piece, like you were saying, like it's something that's often overlooked and misunderstood in our culture, and there's a lot of superficial layers of programming and expectation and I guess, false ways of approaching sexuality for men, and oftentimes it, leads guys into journeys of a lot of frustration or a lot of, I guess they get injected with a lot of values or get injected with worldviews that aren't really actually empowering for them in the long run.
Yeah.
And to be able to, to give pathways out of that and to be able to provide support for men, I think is really important at this time. And I know that's something that, you do really well. And with that in mind, like, just let us know a little bit about like your approach, like how you really work with guys, and what are the pieces that you like to really open up for guys.
Yeah, good one. So, I think one of my central, I guess, platforms is something that both my wife and I sort of came to really organically, and when we work with people, central question we ask them, are you a beggar or are you a king? Especially with the guys, I ask them, are you a beggar and are you a king? And we've had this to talk before, hey, about what that actually means. And I think too many, and especially you would notice this in the dating scene as well, in the pickup scene, and like most men have a real beggar mentality when it comes to women.
Yeah.
But this also equates to the bedroom. This also equates to relationships, ongoing relationships, the sexual act itself. Men can either show up as a beggar or a king.
Yeah.
And they can miss out on being someone who they can really miss out on the depth that's available to them.
Yeah.
They can so that's one central piece, is like just getting guys to take a look at where they are really coming to the relationship with a beggar's bowl and saying, I want you to fill me up.
Yes.
And I will only do X, Y, Z for you if you do X, Y, Z for me.
Right.
I think there's a lot of unwritten contracts in relationships.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of unconscious expectations that drive relationships and drive sexuality and drive men's in a social scene with women. And first and foremost, I get men to really look at what their access points are. What are the points, and what are they actually doing that's causing them to be a beggar?
Yep.
I'm more interested in what men are actually doing rather than trying to go back into past traumas and trying to heal past traumas and stuff that's very subjective.
Yep.
I'm more interested in what's actually happening on the ground now with men, and take a good look at what their actions are, and let them ask the question: where is that coming from? Is it coming from a place of being a beggar or a king?
Yes.
So that's one central place, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's such a huge piece too, isn't it? Like guys really needing to connect with their wholeness as men, you know, like step into that king space of fullness and abundance, and what it really means, like in my opinion, is like really connecting with like a mature sense of masculinity, because we live in a culture that is obsessed with immaturity, you know, and has a constant focus on immaturity. So to to be really connecting and exploring what is it to be a mature man, what is it to be full, and like you say, like where am I empty, and how can I really deal with that on my own terms? You know, how can men deal with their shit on personally, so they don't have to try and find a woman or whatever it is, money or some kind of status object or something to try and make themselves okay. It's really important.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I mean, right now we're bombarded with ideas of masculinity. I mean, guys today are just bombarded with numerous ideas of what it means to be a man, a masculine guy,
Yeah.
A lot of them are conflictual, and so we are lost. The men are just scratching their head and their ass, going, so what should I be, But as soon as they ask that question, they're already defeated from the outset, because if they were born with a cock, they're a guy. They are masculine. They have a particular vibration that we can say is man-like. Is male. It's a maleness.
Yeah.
But the problem is, because we come from 100 years of the absent father syndrome, or a misrepresented father syndrome.
Yeah.
Since the Industrial Revolution, guys are not getting healthy limbic imprints from their father.
Yeah.
Their idea of masculinity is coming through a conceptual model.
Yeah.
It's not coming through a visceral or limbic model. And if it is, it can often be, misplaced.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. So what I'm saying is that it's hard to find how to be a man, because you already are a man. It's more the process is more one of stripping back layers.
Yeah.
Is stripping back what you think it is to be a man and coming home to who you actually are.
Yeah.
That's a totally 180 degree difference to someone who's out there trying to be more this and trying to be more that.
Yes.
So that's another piece.
Yeah, that's cool.
Important to me.
Absolutely. Well, I think that like you have to be coming from that place if you really want success. I mean, I think it is a bit backwards the way a lot of guys are approaching this and trying to like stick things to themselves, or like you say, trying to project themselves to be something. And it's a little bit of that fake it till you make it attitude, which I think has value to some degree. It's great to be trying new things out and exploring aspects of yourself, because I think you can learn a lot. But it's really important to be simultaneously going inside and, like you say, stripping back and getting in contact with that deeper core of masculine truth that we all carry. Once we give ourselves an opportunity to really step out of the masks a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, you can definitely fake it till you make it, or till you break it.
Yeah, that's a good.
It depends which one.
Yeah.
It's it can be either way.
Yeah, that's cool.
Another piece I offered guys is really quite a deep knowledge in the more physiological and hormonal aspects of self-cultivation.
Yep.
It's something that really I find is a piece that a lot of men get or misunderstand, for one.
Yeah.
And I think that we're in a culture that's a super addictive culture and a super adrenalized culture, and guys trying to figure out how to get more potent, but their whole lifestyle is one in which that is really detrimental to their adrenal health and their psychological health and their foundational health. So
yep.
what I help guys to do is to get an understanding of the factors that need to be understood in order to have a very potent life.
Yep.
And that can be like the food, the particular way the foods he eats, the particular way he, the way he trains, the way he approaches his own body, the way he thinks, the way he speaks. There's a whole repertoire of there's a whole smorgasbord of things I give to guys that make them very, very acutely aware of what they do in their life.
Yep.
That either supports their deep level of potency or not.
Yep.
And I have a lot of I have a whole bunch of very powerful physiological practices, yogic practices.
Yep.
That I've developed over the past 20 years that help guys get really laser focused in increasing their hormonal health and their deep foundational potency.
Yes.
So that's another piece I bring to it.
Yeah, that's like a really important thing. Like, and to really get to something I think is very important to put a voice to is really the path of mastery. And I know that's something that you've been really dedicated to for a long time. And it's once again, to bring it back, not to bash our culture too much, but once again, the culture that we live in is oftentimes very focused on short-term gains, minimal input with maximum results, trying to really find like the path of least resistance constantly. And I think sometimes that actually can lead people astray because they're just scratching the surface of what's really going on and not really actually finding or really doing the work, I guess, that is really going to shift their fundamental character and also bring them into a true sense of deep empowerment. And I know that, from the work that I've done with you, like your work is very much focused on, giving guys a lot of feedback about where are the pieces that they're not seeing and how can they start to, to find those awarenesses in themselves so that they can to really face those parts of themselves that have been running away, I guess, or not facing up to the real challenge.
Yeah.
And the other piece I think is that you offer, which is really good, is stepping into that path of mastery. You know what I mean? Like giving guys tools to do stuff that's really powerful for them. So whether that be the qigong or getting into their sense of being and really feeling into that and allowing them to fill the void for themselves with their own awareness. Because at the end of the day, like, it's great that we have all these resources and amazing things outside of us and all these great opportunities, but really when it comes down to it, it's every man for himself. And I mean, we need to look after ourselves. We need to become the kings inside ourselves and evolve that strength and that capacity. And I think a huge part of that comes from doing this work.
Absolutely. I mean, like, a guy is useless to his community if he's deficient and if he hasn't got the juice to provide in the first place.
Yeah.
A guy can spend his whole life looking after other people, looking after the women in his life, looking after his kids, looking after his community, looking after his mates, whatever.
Yeah.
He can spend his whole life doing that, but at the end of the day become completely useless because he's completely forgotten himself in the process. Guys I think the way back for guys these days who are looking for a sense of identity and sense of purpose and self is they need to have a very strong mode of self-cultivation. They have to have some tools in which to sort of access the path back to themselves.
Mm.
And a lot of these tools, and they're not always just psychological or mental in nature. There does need to be a deeper and richer understanding of how we function, how our bodies function, how our cock functions really, how our hormonal system functions really. how our limbic system functions when it's around other people. Like understanding this nature gets us back on track with our primordial nature, not our cultural, not our socialized nature, but our more not our temporal nature, but our more primordial animal self, instinctual self. And one of my favorite topics of discussion with men is how to find their beast, how to find the wild man, reacquaint themselves with the wild man. And anyone who's read Iron John, which is an absolute must-read for every man out there, if you're really serious, you need to read Iron John. It's a classic fable, and it speaks volumes about the nature of the psychology of man. And one of the characters in this fable is the wild man, and it really, the wild man is a part of us that is seriously in need of an overhaul. We need to be reintroduced to the wild man, and to understand its benevolent power, the beauty and the benevolence of this wild creature that exists within us. And a lot of men have lost that. They're in their heads. They're driven by culture. They're driven by ideas. They're driven by social influence, by parents, by media, by their girlfriends, by their mums. I mean, by peer group pressure. They're very rarely do men tap into their really deep instinctual selves and ask the question, so what is it? Who am I really? And what do I need to be doing right now? And so what I'm passionate about is reintroducing the men back to their wild man and letting that beast out of the cage and to see that it's actually not a dangerous thing, that it's not like going to start killing everyone, but it's actually it just needs to be let out of the cage in order for it to be refined further. The wild man in us is consistently seeking to be refined, and it cannot be refined if it's kept in a cage. And this is it's a piece I'm really strong about in my work, is reintroducing men back to that piece, back to that quality that's within them.
Which it's vital, right? If you want to be a potent man, if you want to have vitality, if you want to have follow through, if you want to be able to have a strong emotional impact on the women in your life in a positive way, you really need to be connected to that potent, vital wildness inside yourself. Be in connection with your real core. Yeah.
Women are screaming for it. Women are screaming for it. I mean, look. My wife, Saida Desilets, she's been around as long as I've been around. We've been colleagues before we got together. She works with thousands of women all around the world. The number one thing she gets from the women is, where have all the real men gone? Where have all the juicy, wild creatures gone? They're so in their head. They're so busy trying to be new age and spiritual and pure and nice and worshipping the goddess and all this bullshit, and they've just completely lost touch with themselves. They're in this sort of fabricated idea of what it means to be a tantric guy or a new age sort of warrior. I don't know. I'm gonna get pretty cynical, but there's a lot of men are trying a new model on. Men are sincerely attempting to wear a new set of ideas in order to impress the ladies, but
totally.
It's falling short. And women are still saying, well, I'd like to be around some nice, spiritually awakened, sort of conscious guys, but we're sort of bored, and there's I'm only getting half the guy. There's another half of the guy which they're only getting half of the man. They're not getting the full man. So and it's something for guys to really have a look at today, is where their wild man is at, and do they have a handle on it? Do they even know it exists? Are they friends with it? Do they trust it? Are they running away from it, or are they sort of, or are they expressing it in a really belligerent way? You know, what's their relationship with the wild man?
Yeah.
And I think that's a massive question to ask for guys, particularly around sexuality.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, there's so much confidence and I guess peace and wholeness that comes from integrating that into yourself. You know, I think that's such a huge thing that guys are also screaming out for. You know, I mean, like they're looking in all these places. You know, looking same in the dating and pickup world. You know, I mean, they're looking for, you know, magic tricks or ways of being or some kind of way that's going to just allow them to come into their power. But at the same time, if it's not really connecting to the truth of who they are, and if it's not really giving them the permission to really step into their masculinity, then it's always going to be like a virtual reality or a projection of something that's missing.
Exactly.
It's missing the core. Yeah, it hasn't got the essence in it.
Exactly. I mean, and that's the thing. Like you said it. You said it's not letting them get in touch with who they are. But there's a step before that. The guy hasn't even asked the question, "Who am I?" You know what I'm saying? So like, you've got to, if a guy, the first and foremost question a guy needs to ask himself is, who am I? And who is it that's trying to get all these tricks and techniques and things? Is it me in my most powerful state, or is it just me in my most fear-ridden or anxious sort of state? Who is it that's needing these things in the first place? And if he really asks that question sincerely, he's going to start to understand that there's like here's soul, like here I am, soul or Shae. Here's Shae, and everything we think which makes up Shae, or everything we think that makes up soul. And then there's sort of the soul or the Shae that exists beyond all that. And this is going to be a bit of a stretch for a lot of guys, but for each guy to ask the question, who am I, is going to start a process of self-inquiry, which will lead them to understand that these things, these techniques, these tricks, these sort of attempts at impressing and picking up or becoming hot in the bedroom, not always coming from a place of power. They're not always coming from a place of self-ownership. They're coming from a place of desperation, fear, apathy, aversion. You know, they're going to be coming from places that are going to perpetuate their problems. They're not always coming from a place of power. And the first and foremost question for guys to ask themselves is, really, who am I?
Yeah.
You know, and it comes to that whole question, which men are struggling with today really strongly. It's like, who am I? As a man in today's world, who am I really?
Yeah.
What does make up me as a man, you know?
Which is so big, you know, because it's like a top-down realization. Like once a man gets connected to, you know, the truth of himself as something much bigger than any false identification or any projection, and he can really feel his power, all those other pieces start to come into alignment anyway.
Exactly.
And I think that's the most amazing thing. And oftentimes, you know, I mean, you don't need to be a tantric master to impress a woman. You just need to be able to be really present and, you know, be yourself, really, you know.
Yeah.
And it sounds a bit cliche, but when you're really doing it, you know, I mean, it's a very powerful thing.
Yeah, I often say to women, you know, if a guy comes up to you and tells you he's a tantric master, just fucking run for the hills.
Yeah, that's right.
Just run for the hills.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if you really understand this aspect of sexuality, if you really understand the science and art of lovemaking, of self-cultivation, of cultivating deep relationship, deep sexual polarity, if you really understand this on a deep level, you never have to say anything. You never have to say, I'm this or I'm that. You never have to wear the labels. You never have to wear the tags. You never have to prop yourself up as some master of this or some master of that, some guru of this, you know, and really, if a guy is starting to, if that's the guy's pickup, if that's the guy's intro, or if that's what he's using to get her in the bedroom, I mean, he's already sort of defeated. If he's got to use that, he doesn't really get it.
Yeah.
And then he's going to spend the next hour in the bedroom working really hard on how to impress her and how to not ejaculate, and how to do the right G-spot massage, and how to do the right tricks and right techniques. And meanwhile, the chick's just sitting there going, yeah, this is sort of cool, but I don't really feel this guy. This guy's not really here. This guy's not really present.
Yeah, it's a lot of hard work. Yeah.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, he's going to get bored with that, and she's going to get bored with that.
So true. So we'll tell us a little bit about your work, because I know you're coming to Melbourne to do some workshops soon, and you're also just released a new website with a whole range of really cool things that are going on there. So tell us a little bit about what you've got in store for the future, and what guys can expect.
Cool. So for 20 years I've been teaching, and I've got to say, I'm like, I really need to get my shit online because there's only so many guys I can reach, tramping around the world, different countries, and but I really, the drive for me to have a website and have an online, I'm working on the online courses. I've got a whole lot of programs I'm working on, really, really thoroughly, spending fucking hours a day writing these programs, just sort of congealing all the work I've done over the 20 years.
Yep.
To give to men in an online format. These things can be accessed from my website, which is alchemyofman.com.
Yep. Awesome website, by the way.
Yeah, it's just launched. I got up last week finally. I mean, it takes me, and I'm doing all this myself. I'm creating the whole thing. I've got my guy in India, but apart from that, I'm designing and creating the whole thing myself. And so I'm really happy about getting that up. I really want to help guys access the work more readily. There's a lot more coming online soon. There's the online course called The Multi-Orgasmic Man. My good friend Doug Abrams, who wrote The Multi-Orgasmic Man, has just given me, he just gave me the green light to continue the work and to take it to a whole new level.
Yep.
And I'm going to do that in an online format. And it's going to take the work of Mantak Chia and the whole Taoist thing to, I think that's a model that needs to evolve, and I'm going to step up to that, and I'm going to help guys to get a better grip on that model.
Yep.
And help it to evolve.
Awesome.
And all right, what else is there? So there's more workshops, there's more online courses coming. My live events called Lust for Life, and that's a 4-day event spread over 2 weekends, and that's a really kick-ass program for men. It's coming up in Melbourne very soon.
Yep.
The first weekend is more about solo cultivation, about taking care of the self, and the second weekend is more about what happens in the bedroom, what happens when you're in sexual interplay, and what happens when we're in the mix, you know what I'm saying? Like actually with the woman in the bed or on the kitchen bench, wherever you do it.
Yep.
And how to become more artful in this area. And it's a beautiful discussion. It's a very enlightening weekend that is going to give them a lot of practical skills, as well as a lot of self-awareness, a lot of confidence, a lot of insights into their deeper masculine nature. I mean, they're more primordial masculine nature. So like, okay, it all looks like it's about sex and women and stuff, but at the end of the day, what they're going to come out with is a much richer perspective of how to be a more whole man, a more total sort of man. So that's it. So there's online courses. There's the site, which has a lot of blogs. Every week, if the guys want to get a hit of what I'm about every week, just sign up on the website, and I'll be sending you a really rocking article every week. And then there's the live courses. So it's all on the site.
Yep.
It can all be found there. And finally, I've got some some interface where it's all in one package.
Yeah, it's fantastic to see, man. So like, and just to really reinforce that, like for guys out there that really wanting to take it to a deep level and wanting to find, what it is that really makes them a stronger man. Like this is a really good doorway that Soul's provided, and you get a lot out of starting to study this information, and it opens a lot of doors and it really gets guys on the path to that mastery and self-inquiry, which is a piece that it fills so many gaps. You know what I mean? It's a piece that's often overlooked, but in many ways it's a masterpiece. It's a piece that will pull everything else into place when it's working.
Yeah, that's a masterpiece. That's a great one.
Yeah,
we are a masterpiece. We are a piece. We can either just be a piece or we can be a masterpiece.
Yeah, I like that. That's really cool. So yeah, definitely get on board, guys, if you're interested in understanding yourself on a deeper level, and obviously you want to get some skills, because Soul's all over it. And I really look forward to having more chats with you, man, because I know that we've got a lot to share and to put out to the world, and it's an exciting time, man. Like lots happening. It's really a big opportunity for growth and evolution for the whole planet as well as individuals.
It is an exciting time for men. I mean, just on an end note, guys can either freak out and go, shit, who am I? And get really, really hung up on their place in the world today. Or they can go, wow, this is a place of real potential. We're in flux now, and this can go anywhere.
Yeah.
So let's make it go in a really good way. Let's make it go somewhere really great. And so Shae, you rock, mate. You and your guys, you and the Naturals. I love you guys. You guys I really dig where you guys are coming from, and I would love to work more with you guys in the future.
Thanks, man. Yeah, much more to come. So stay tuned, gentlemen, and I look forward to catching up with you again real soon, Soul.
Take care, buddy.